Hello, we are Mireia Casanyes and Carla Marco, and together we form Alum Collective, which is a dance and performing collective. And we're going to share with you some dancing information because of the International Day Dance. Yeah.
So Carla is going to share you some informations and some materials about more contemporary practices, and I'm going to share some historical frame about the avant-gardist practices of the beginning of the 20th century.
Yeah, and first of all, I would like to start talking about reclaiming the body as a source of sensorial possibilities connected to pleasure. And to do this, I'm going to focus on Gaga Technique, which is a movement language that encourages dancers to explore their bodies through improvisation and sensation. And it was a technique developed by an Israeli choreographer named Ohad Naharin in 1990. And regarding how it works, Gaga classes are a series of instructions that help dancers to access their physical sensations, and where dancers are encouraged to be open to different sensations without anticipating or choreographing them. Gaga classes are multisensory and physically challenging because dancers are guided to connect their effort to pleasure. And regarding all the benefits that Gaga has, it helps dancers to discover and strengthen their bodies, increasing their flexibility, agility, and coordination. And Gaga also helps dancers to stimulate their senses and imagination, raising their physical awareness. In short, this technique helps dancers to discover their body strengths and weaknesses. And everybody can take Gaga classes because there are like classes for open levels or Gaga for dancers, and yes. And another information that I would like to share with you, it's the choreographer Carolyn Carson. And I would like to share with you this particular choreographer because I would like to reclaim the body not as an isolated organism, but as a part of the constant creation and changing rhythms of the world. And yes, as I said, to exemplify this, I'm going to introduce you to Carolyn Carson, which is an American-French contemporary dance choreographer, performer, and poet. And in her more than 100 creations, she seeks to develop and share her poetic universe. In fact, she prefers the term visual poetry or to choreography to describe her work. And I'm going to focus on a particular dancing piece titled The Tree, in which Carson drew on the book Fragments of Poetics of Fire by French philosopher Gaston Bachelard to choose these poetic and powerful flares that represents the broad complexity of natural elements in a current context of collapse and dystopia. Although the magic thing is that in this choreography, in her choreography, there is always an opening to hope and rebirth, because as she said, we are not outside the universe. We are a tiny seed within a cycle of rhythms and change, the seasons and the creation of the world. And that is exactly what she tries to embody in her work through poetics of movement and expression. Yeah, and indeed, I strongly recommend you the documentary, The Carolyn Carson Company at Work, from Beatrice Camorat-Jo, that shows an extensive 8 months journey that immerses us in the creative and choreographic process of one of her pieces, which I named already, that is The Tree.
So, in relation to that, I would like to add some historical context and some artistic practices that were held at the beginning of the past century, the 20th century. and focus more into the avant-gardist movement, especially in the expressionism and the surrealism. These movements took place at the beginning of the 20th century in the most important metropoles of Paris, Berlin, and also cities as Cologne, Zurich, and Barcelona. To start with, the worldwide known dancer Mary Wickman was one of the initiators of the expressionist dance. I citate a scholar that says that the new dance which Wickman developed was also called Ausdruck dance, or dance of the expression, not expressionist dance. However, he stated, Mary Wickman, in an interview, that there is expressionism in all art that is worthy of the name. So expressionism was that energy, that quality that she tried to explore in her pieces. Wickman also has defined the dancer's goal as being to establish a consonance of their innermost feeling and the outer sensibility to form, and also dictated by their own time. So the element of embodying this feeling and also seeing it in consonance with the history, with the outer world. So two important points for the German expressionism was where to present these innermost feelings and to represent this pathos of the time. The dentist of Mary Wickman, she explored a way to break the constrictions of the classical ballet, and in her first piece, Hexentanz, the dance of the witch, was very impressive at the time, and she embodied the act of a witch, but also with different resonances. On the one hand, she played with the mask, she played with the ancient traditions that came from Japan, like Buto, and also trying to feel the grief of the First World War. Some of the artists that surrounded Wickman, there were Gertrude Bodenweiser, Emmy Hennings, and Sophia Tauber-Arp, which I will explain some practices of them in a while.
And to finish my part, I would like to reclaim the body from stillness, pause, and from an active and perceptive listening to the environment. Talking about the dancing piece, Prophane Altars, Altars Profans, from the Catalan dancer and choreographer Magdalena Garzón. The piece combines poetry and mystery, inspired by the photography of Mallorcan artist Toni Catany, with a captivating style and a strong visual impact. The performers move like ghosts and delve into the essence of objects and memories to create a choreography that connects the past with contemporary imagination. The piece invites us, therefore, to an intimate and perceptual journey, where we see bodies transform, now becoming objects, now half germinating. As one of the dancers explained it, they disappear as people in order to make space for the image. And yeah, I think that this shows how dance has the power to create its own time and space, a time and space separated from the outside of the room where everything is happening. And these variations allow the efflorescence of all the bodily dimensions of the dancers in the piece, who unfolds a labyrinthine and hieroglyphic body, depending on the light. An effect of approach is created in which the bodies appear in all their materiality, or on the contrary, an effect of distance that evaporates them and turns them into shadows, contours, or even ideograms.
So, and stemming from these seeds, I would like also to share that these contemporary practices, if one looks in depth into them, they can be perceived as also an inheritance of what, for example, dancers like Mary Wickman or Sophie Tauber-Arp, they tried to create. I will focus now in a collective experience that took place in the beginning of the century as well, in Monte Verità. It's a lake called Lago Maggiore in Switzerland, and it was a very rich moment and a very sad moment as well in the history. There was an artistic colony in an artistic space that a lot of exiled artists they came there and they tried to build a new society, a new community apart from the war that was being that was going on in Europe, and it was a very germinating moment as well for the artists, not only because of the amount of new ideas that they created, but also on the importance of being connected, and of putting in dialogue different disciplines. For example, painting, dancing, and writing poetry. In this constant dialogue, they moved and they created the new movements of the beginning of the century. So Mary Wickman was there, and also Gertrude Bodenweiser, who was a person who followed Mary Wickman, but also created her own pieces, her own language. And also Amy Hennings. Amy Hennings was a Dadaist, that she was the co-founder of the Cabaret Voltaire in Zurich, also an exiled, an experience of in the experience of the exile. And she performed different pieces, different ephemeral performances in Cabaret Voltaire, and also in Monte Verità, in Munich, in Berlin. And she really thought, and she really believed that art should be everywhere, not only on the theaters, not only on the consecrated spaces, but also in bars, in collective spaces, on the street. So she played this huge role, among others, of hybridating the traditional and the mythological forms of viewing art, and also the most popular languages. She was also a cabaretist, and with another artist called Walecka Gert, and also other singers of the time. There were lots of groups of them. They performed several pieces. One is called Arachne in 1919. And in this piece, she appeared behind a curtain with a mask, but only the public only could see their face covered with some curtains in both sides. And she started to recitating a poem, a Dadaist poem in a language that she really invented. This was a very provocative piece in that time, in a time in which cinema existed, but television didn't exist, and so the attention was really focused on this phase, on this speaking phase, in a language that was totally destroyed or renewed. So this is only one example of the type of performances that they did. They also disguised themselves, like this community, in several characters, also like nuns, cabaretists, harlequins, these figures that were on the margins of the society on the time, in that time, and that they tried to speak what the war was silencing. The question that maybe can arise from the things that we are currently researching and experiencing and trying to understand is maybe which is the dialogue in within these practices. That could be maybe one question, one inspiring glimpse to that. How can we inherit these practices or these pieces that they also already speak to us, and they are part of our forgotten heritage, and how the way how they even though they lived in a very limiting context from the outside, they really tried to surpass them and to believe that artistic practices could affect in the both senses of the affecting something and of affects our daily practices and our lives in an artistic sense. So yeah, I think this was what we wanted to share, like first glimpses to our references. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and enjoy this dance International Day.
Enjoy it.